You ever walk into a room expecting a promotion and leave wondering if you were ever seen at all? That was me. 10:52 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday in conference room 3D, 12th floor, Manhattan office. The invite read, Annual Performance Review and Bonus Confirmation. I checked it 5 times. Even wore my charcoal gray blazer. The one I save for wins, not wars. When I walked in, Martin was already there. Stiff posture, pen in hand, eyes fixed on a manila folder like it might explode. He didn't smile, didn't look up. The blinds were drawn tight, like a secret. We're undergoing a structural shift, he began. Flat tone, no warmth. We've reassessed leadership alignment for 2024. I didn't speak. You learn not to interrupt corporate theater. That language? It always means the same thing. Somebody's getting cut down. Erica, he said, effective next Monday, you'll begin reporting to Shane. He'll be leading the new client growth division. Shane? The guy who once misspelled our firm's name in a pitch deck? The same Shane who asked me what ROI stood for? Last week? And the Breivix account? I asked. Calm. Measured. Martin shifted in his seat. That's being consolidated into Shane's unit. Consolidated. No recognition, no congratulations, no mention that I brought in Breivix, a $14 million client, 2 months ago. Just taken. Absorbed. Washed away in a wave of realignment. No bonus. No title. Just a blank smile and cold coffee. Hi, I'm Erica Caldwell. I'm 45 years old. 3 weeks ago, I ran the client growth strategy at Harlow Grant and Associates. Today, I found out I've been erased. Not because I failed, but because someone smaller needed to feel bigger. Before I continue, have you ever been blindsided in a room where you expected to be celebrated? If you have, I want to hear your story. I want to hear your story. Hit like, subscribe, leave a comment. Because the moment that door shut behind me, I knew it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something they never saw coming. I didn't cry. Not in the meeting, not in the elevator, not even sitting in the concrete silence of level 4 in the parking garage. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was hollowness, like someone had quietly scooped me out and left the shell intact. I sat in my car, engine off, watching the clock turn 11:17 a.m. But in my head, I was still frozen in that cold, beige conference room. Still hearing Martin's clipped voice. Still trying to figure out how 6 years of work could be erased in 12 minutes. My hand hovered over my phone. But who do you call when you don't even have words for what just happened? 6 years. That's how long I gave them. 6 years of 70-hour weeks, of last-minute flights and client fires and calming voices at 10:43 p.m. from hotel lobbies. When I joined Harlow Grant and Associates, our digital sector barely existed. Today, it's 38% of revenue, and I built it. And Martin? He didn't just know that, he used it. If you land Breivix, he told me, I'll take you to partner. No hesitation. That wasn't a compliment. That was a handshake deal. And I kept my end. I closed the deal. So I opened my inbox, searched, annual partner retreat, nothing. Checked the archive, still nothing. Then I opened the HR drive. Partner review, final voting sheet, dated 2 days ago. I scrolled slowly, my heart knocking harder with every line. Then I saw it. Plain Helvetica, Erica Caldwell, removed from ballot. The note beside it? No longer under consideration. Following strategic restructuring. Not a word about Breivix, no explanation, no mention of 6 years. Just a silent erasure, like I was never even there. No mention of the deal I closed. No explanation. Just gone. A few rows down, I saw another name. Shane Mulligan. Submitted for consideration. I felt the sting rise like acid. The same junior associate who once asked me how to save a PowerPoint as a PDF was now being considered for partnership. And that's when it hit me. They never intended to reward me. They just needed me to finish the job. And once I did, I became inconvenient. I closed my laptop slowly, my chest tightening. 6 years of work, of loyalty, Gone with a single update in a Google Sheet. No thank you, no phone call, just deletion. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. I didn't panic. I didn't shout. I opened a folder I hadn't touched in 6 months. That's what I remember most from that Friday night. How quiet it was inside me. Not rage, not fear, just clarity. Like walking out of a storm and into sunlight. 3 weeks before the demotion, the Breivik's deal was falling apart. We were in the final round. Red lines flying back and forth. On a Thursday afternoon, Breivik's CFO, Adrian Lang, emailed me directly. We need signed paperwork by Sunday night or we reopen bidding Monday. I forwarded it to Martin. No reply. Called his phone at 7:42 p.m., straight to voicemail. Then I called Natalie in legal. She answered, barely awake. Can this wait? She groaned. No, I said. If we wait, we lose them. I'm out of town with my kids, she said. Send red lines. I'll try late Sunday. That was it. The biggest deal the firm had touched in years, and I was the only one who cared. I stared at the unsigned contract on my screen. $14 million. 4 months of negotiation, rewrites, ego management, my work. And that's when I opened the folder labeled E. Caldwell Consulting, LLC, E. Caldwell Consulting, Legal Docs. It started as a just-in-case folder. After the last departmental shuffle, I quietly registered my own LLC, just in case the ground shifted again. If this story moved you, I hope you'll subscribe, because the next chapter isn't just mine, it's ours. I never imagined I'd actually need it, but now, it was the only name I could trust. I opened the Breivik's contract, revised just one field, service provider became E. Caldwell Consulting, LLC. Everything else stayed the same. Before hitting send, I searched my inbox for a message from Martin, dated 7 weeks back. Subject, Execution Authority, Breivik's. In it, he'd written, use your judgment if time is tight. Final call is yours. That was enough. I signed it, attached the red lines and supporting documents, paused, then glanced at the photo on my desk, me and the team at last year's strategy summit in Aspen. Back when I still thought loyalty protected people. 8:04 p.m., I hit send and just sat there. Not victorious, not enraged, just still. I wasn't trying to betray anyone. I was trying to keep the firm from losing its biggest client. They didn't know it yet, but I had just become the sole legal owner of the most valuable contract in Harlow Grant's entire portfolio. Not because I wanted power, because I was the only one who showed up. The next morning, I opened my inbox like I had 1,000 times before. Subject line, Breivik's. Next steps. Sent 7:41 a.m. from Martin. Erica, please finalize onboarding documents and coordinate initial handoff to Shane by Thursday. Thanks. No greeting, no signature, no mention that the $14 million deal only existed because I negotiated it through holidays, weekends, and 3 red-eye flights. Just another task. Forwarded like it meant nothing. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. Not yet. Instead, I stepped into the kitchen and made coffee. Slowly. The motion felt like resistance. I poured the cream with 2 fingers, stirred without a sound, and walked back to my desk like I wasn't holding a live grenade in my inbox. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I didn't answer Martin's email. Something in me needed to wait. There was a stillness in the air. Tense. Deliberate. Like sitting in a locked room, knowing you have the key in your pocket, but choosing to stay seated anyway. Then, at 8:12 a.m., my personal inbox pinged. Subject, quick confirmation, payment routing. From Adrian Lang, Breivik's Data Partners, to me, hi, Erica. Just confirming we're sending the initial wire to E. Caldwell Consulting, LLC, per signed agreement. Let me know if any changes. I stared at the screen. Not Harlow Grant. Me. My hands didn't shake, but my breath stalled in my chest. This wasn't just admin. It was validation. Proof I hadn't slipped the contract through unnoticed. Adrian expected this. She trusted me. And in that moment, something shifted. I wasn't just the strategist behind the deal. I was the deal. I clicked reply. Typed 3 words, confirmed as signed, then paused. Did I hit send? Number instead, I opened a blank draft in another window. Subject, resignation. To Martin Hastings. Martin, effective immediately, I will be stepping away from my role at Harlow Grant & Associates. I didn't finish it. Not yet. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, then hit save as draft. Because timing matters. They thought I was a closer. But Adrian knew the truth. And now, so did I. I didn't respond to Martin's email that day. I didn't have to. His request had entered a world he no longer controlled. The money landed at 6:12 p.m. Clean, quiet, absolute, $4 million, wired directly to E. Caldwell Consulting, LLC. No notification, no alert. Just a single line of numbers, new and quiet, on a white screen in my business account dashboard. Clean, precise. I stared at it for a full minute. Then another. My coffee had gone cold, untouched beside me. But I didn't move to sip it. You'd think that moment would feel like triumph. But it didn't. It felt like silence. I was still seated in the dark at my desk. The only light was the pale glow of the screen. The blinds were half closed. Outside, the city had started to exhale. Windows glowing, cabs slowing, streetlights flickering on like stage lights for lives that kept moving without pause. Inside, I hadn't turned on a lamp. I didn't want to. On paper, I was richer than I'd ever been in my life. But in that moment, I felt hollow. There was no champagne, no well-done call from Martin, no team to celebrate the win. Just me, alone in a room that had once been filled with ambition. 6 years at Harlow Grant, 6 years of building, presenting, fixing, mentoring, of missing holidays, delaying flights, giving everything I had. And now, I was the only one who knew I'd just won. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. My chest felt tight, like something heavy had lodged itself deep and wouldn't budge. I hadn't cried in years. But now, the tears came. Quiet, unstoppable, the kind that only show up when you finally run out of reasons to hold them in. Then my phone rang. Adrian Lang, Bravick's data partners? I wiped my face, picked up. Erica, she said gently, I just wanted to say, congratulations. We're thrilled to move forward. With you. We're excited to move forward. With you, Adrian said. Then she paused and added something I'll never forget. We signed with you, Erica, not your firm. That was always the difference. I couldn't speak right away, just nodded into the phone, even though she couldn't see me. That sentence, small, quiet, true, meant more than any bonus ever could. After we hung up, I reopened the resignation draft I'd saved earlier. Subject, resignation. To Martin Hastings. This time, I didn't hesitate. I clicked send. And for the first time in weeks, I let out a full breath. It started not long after, with a message I was never supposed to see. Nicole from finance accidentally copied me on a Slack thread at 1:13 p.m. Martin, just flagging this. Bravick's payment didn't land in our account. Want me to check with their AP? I didn't respond, just stared at the screen, because I already knew exactly why it hadn't landed. By 1:45 p.m., Adrian responded to Martin directly. Already wired. Sent to E. Caldwell Consulting per signed agreement. And just like that, I could picture it. The panic settling across Martin's face. For 6 years, he never followed up. He delegated, then vanished. When something worked, he claimed credit. When something failed, I was CC'd with a trail of blame. But this time, he'd given me authority in writing and walked away. At 2:20 p.m., the emergency meeting began. Martin, HR Legal, Finance. All gathered in that glass-walled conference room I used to lead. I could see it in my mind. Nervous glances, shifting chairs, the same question on everyone's face. What exactly did Erica do? And then someone in legal pulls the email. If legal's backlogged, use your judgment. You have full execution rights. His words, not mine. And I didn't need to be there to feel the heat building. Please return all company files, client agreements, and proprietary documents. No subject line, no greeting, just a flat message from Angela in HR. I let it sit for 10 minutes, then typed, slowly, deliberately. Hi, Angela. Thank you for the note. For clarity, all contracts and materials in my possession are legally held by E. Caldwell Consulting, LLC, under executive authority granted by Harlow Grant and Associates leadership. Nothing I currently hold belongs to the company. Best, Erica Caldwell. I reread it 3 times before hitting send at 2:38 p.m. No fluff, no filler, just truth. That same minute, my attorney followed up with a cease and desist, addressed directly to Martin. It was short, director, cold, exactly how I'd asked her to write it. No emotion, just law. Phrases like ongoing harassment, unauthorized claims, and legal recourse pending further contact left no room for misinterpretation. I didn't want to sue. I just wanted the noise to stop. But the irony? Martin had handed me the authority, and now he was scrambling to claw it back. He used to sit atop the org chart. Now? Just another exec trying to interpret legalese he never expected to face. I stood by the window, watching the gray Manhattan sky fade into evening. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I just felt done. They started this fight. I'd already signed the ending. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 9 a.m. I wasn't there, of course, but I knew the pacing, the agenda, the tone. I'd built those meetings for years. I knew Martin, too, how he'd try to spin the loss. But Bravix's absence from the forecast? No spreadsheet could cover that hole. At 9:43 a.m., I got the first clue things had gone sideways. A text from a former colleague, Martin sweating bullets. Owen from the business intelligence team sent me a text. 4 words, Martin is sweating bullets. I stared at it for a moment, then set the phone down without replying. I could see it so clearly. The boardroom, long oak table, 12 leather chairs, screens at both ends flashing dashboards and trailing revenue forecasts. I'd presented there a dozen times, watched Martin hold court with effortless control, confident, calculated, always one step ahead. But this time, the numbers weren't on his side. Later, I'd hear from more than one source that the question came from Elaine Merrick, one of the longest-serving board members. "Where is the Bravix revenue?" she'd asked. Apparently, Martin fumbled, said something vague about onboarding delays and final paperwork. Elaine pressed. "We were told this contract was finalized weeks ago." That's when the audit chair spoke up. "We have no signed copy in our system. Legal hasn't logged it. The client doesn't appear in receivables." Silence. Then someone asked, "Who finalized it?" And finally, Martin gave the answer. "My former strategist, Erica Caldwell." No elaboration, no mention that I'd left the company, no disclosure that I'd signed under my own LLC, or that he had given me authority in writing. He just let my name hang in the air like a fog no one wanted to walk through. I didn't feel proud, or even vindicated. I felt separate, like I'd already stepped out of their story. That afternoon, at 1:06 p.m., I received an email from Elaine's assistant. Subject: private discussion request. Message: Ms. Merrick would like to speak with you regarding recent events. Are you available this week? I paused, then replied, "Thank you. I appreciate the outreach. At this time, I prefer not to engage directly. I've attached a summary report outlining the Bravix contract, timeline, legal authority, client correspondence, a quiet refusal, but one that made something clear. The contract was signed by me. The payment came to me. And the client was always loyal to me, not the company, not Martin, me." I never heard from Elaine again, but I did hear from Owen later that week. "Martin didn't say a word after your reply," he told me. "Just sat there, red-faced, motionless. Someone else had to finish the meeting. I pictured him in that chair, once so sure of his own power. Now, small, shrinking. And all I could think was, you should have signed your own deals." Rumors move faster than press releases. In our industry, all it takes is one missing wire transfer, one contract that doesn't land where it's expected. And suddenly, People start asking questions, first in whispers, then in threads, then in boardrooms. By the following Tuesday at 9:17 a.m., I got a message from a name I hadn't seen in months. Subject, coffee? It was from Lindsay Meeker, a former client at Stratopath. She always CC'd me, even when Martin insisted she go through the proper channels. I replied, name the place and time. We met that afternoon at a quiet cafe off Lexington. I got there early, chose a back table, and watched as Lindsay spotted me through the window. She walked in fast, eyes full of questions. "Erica," she said, breathless. "So, it's true." I didn't ask what she meant. I just smiled. "Heard about E. Caldwell Consulting?" she said, laughing, not unkindly. "It's all over the advisory forums. No one saw it coming." She leaned in. "Was it revenge?" I shook my head. It was timing. We didn't talk contracts, not directly, but her meaning was clear. If I opened the door, she'd walk through it. By 5:40 p.m., she sent a formal inquiry. 2 days later, we signed a 3-month retainer. And that was just the beginning. The next week, I heard from Marcus Zhao, former data lead at Harlow. "I don't like how they handled things," he said. "I'd rather build something with you." No big speech, no grand proposal, just a steady hand, reaching out to build something real. We met that evening. Marcus brought a folder, 2 non-compete clauses, already vetted, and a list of infrastructure needs. Nothing flashy, just focused. By 7 p.m., we shook hands in my living room. By Monday, he was onboarded. By Thursday, both clients had signed. There was no celebration, no viral LinkedIn post, no champagne or photo ops, but something had shifted. I felt it in the tone of the calls coming in. Calls from people I used to chase. I heard it in Adriana's voice when she spoke now. She didn't sound like a client managing a vendor. She sounded like a peer. And I saw it most clearly the day I signed the lease on my new office. It was a calm afternoon, 2:15 p.m. The property manager, a kind-eyed man named Leonard, handed me a folder thick with contracts. I signed each page without hesitation. Then we walked through the space, sunlight pooling through wide windows, oak floors warm beneath our steps. At the front entrance, Leonard paused. "We can have your name on the glass by the end of the week." I paused, too. Not Harlow. Not a project code. Not a title below someone else's initials. Just my name. E. Caldwell Consulting. Black lettering. Centered. He smiled. "Done." I stayed there a moment after he left, hands resting on the cool glass, watching sunlight spill across the floor. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just present, and completely, quietly, proud. Then the email came, 1:37 p.m. Subject, meeting sender, Martin Hastings. "Erica, would appreciate the chance to talk directly. Let me know if you have availability today or tomorrow. In person preferred. No explanation, no context. Just clip sentences from a man unraveling behind closed doors." I didn't respond right away. I needed to think. So I went for a walk. The sky was pale gray, the kind of late fall chill that brushes your skin like a reminder. Stay alert, stay awake. I moved through streets I used to associate with tension, rehearsed lines in elevators, tight smiles in marble-boarded lobbies. Now, they just felt like city blocks. By 3:15 p.m., I replied to Martin's email. "Let's meet at 4:30. Corner conference room, East Point offices. 1 hour, short, precise. Mine." I arrived early and set the stage, poured the water, angled the blinds, 1 chair at the head, 1 opposite. When Martin walked in at 4:29 p.m., he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, energetically. The man who once commanded rooms with borrowed confidence now moved like someone unsure of his footing. "Erica," he said with a stiff nod. "Thanks for taking the time." I nodded back, expression neutral. "Sit." He did. Silence stretched between us. He glanced at the water but didn't drink. "I'll be direct," he said. "This hasn't been the smoothest transition. Emotions are high, but I think we can agree. There's still value in collaboration." I let him talk. It sounded rehearsed. Talking points dressed as sincerity. I'm proposing, he continued, a joint advisory structure. You'd retain E. Caldwell Consulting. We'd co-lead the Bravix account under a unified engagement. Without a word, I opened my folder, pulled out the document. A new retainer agreement, signed 2 days earlier, 3 years, $30 million. Sole provider, E. Caldwell Consulting. I slid it across the table. Martin read it, blinked, swallowed. Finally, so it's official? Yes, I said. It's been official. This meeting is a courtesy, Martin. He looked like he wanted to speak, apologize, justify. But I didn't leave space. You didn't choose me when it mattered. My voice didn't shake. It never needed to. Now, I said quietly, I get to choose not to choose you. There it was, the weight I'd carried for years, waiting to be seen, picked, validated by someone who never once saw me as more than a utility. Gone. Not with yelling, not with spectacle. Just gone. Martin nodded, slowly. I misread things. You did more than misread, I said. You underestimated. Silence. Then he stood. Congratulations, Erica. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he didn't. But it didn't matter anymore. I waited until he left the room before I took my first full breath. My chest expanded in a way it hadn't in years. The silence wasn't empty. It was earned. Outside, the sunlight had dipped low, throwing soft gold across the windows. 4:46 p.m. I stood there, alone, exactly where I needed to be. Not superior, not spiteful. Just finally, completely free. The new nameplate was installed the next morning at 9 a.m. Black lettering, frosted glass, centered. Just as I'd requested, E. Caldwell Consulting, LLC. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, just looking at it. Not rushing to unlock the door, not snapping a picture for LinkedIn, just breathing. It had taken me 6 years to climb their ladder, and exactly 3 months to build my own. I opened the door and stepped inside the space I now called mine. The air still carried the scent of fresh paint and cedar. Sunlight stretched across the hardwood floor like a quiet welcome. Inside, the hum of a Monday had already begun. Marcus was reviewing projections with his team down the hall. Lindsay had just arrived, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. We'd signed 2 new clients the previous week. Adrian from Bravix had introduced me to a private equity contact in Paris. Word was spreading, but there was no frenzy, no ego, no games. Just steady, quiet movement, exactly the culture I had once tried to build under someone else's roof. Now, finally free to live and breathe on its own. At 10:07 a.m., I sat at my desk. Not Martin's desk, not a borrowed chair in someone else's corner office. Mine. I opened my calendar. 1 new meeting request had come in. Subject: Strategic Acquisition Inquiry. From Andrew Koenig, Managing Partner, Templar Holdings. Time: flexible, this week. The message was concise and professional. We've been following your firm's momentum. Would love to explore an offer. Fully funded. Global rollout potential. Open to a conversation? I read it once. Then again. Templar Holdings wasn't a small name. 6 months ago, an email like that might have ended up framed on my wall. But today, I simply replied, "Thank you, Andrew. I'm not looking to sell at this time. We're just getting started." I hit send, and a deep, quiet satisfaction spread across my chest. It wasn't just that I'd turned down power. It was that I no longer needed permission to say yes to myself. I looked around the office again. Glass walls, open space, sunlight, and quiet determination. The hum of new beginnings. And the people who'd chosen to be here. Not for safety, not for a title, but because they believed. They used to say I was too sharp, too direct, too much. Now, they just called me boss. Here's the part no one tells you. Sometimes, freedom doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from refusal. Refusal to shrink. Refusal to stay where you're only tolerated. Refusal to play small in a world built for comfort, not courage. They demoted me because they thought I was small, but I wasn't made to fit in their frame. I was meant to build my own. If this resonated with you, share it, subscribe, and in the comments, Tell me, when did you realize you were meant to walk your own path? That moment? That's where freedom begins. If you've made it this far, thank you. Really. This story wasn't just about a contract or a title. It was about reclaiming something we all deserve. Agency. I didn't build E. Caldwell Consulting to prove anyone wrong. I built it because I finally realized I didn't need to wait for someone else to believe in me. I just had to stop shrinking. If this story reminded you of something you've lived through or something you're living through now, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment. Tell me your moment, the one where you knew you were being overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. And more importantly, the moment you decided to do something about it. Because those moments, while painful, are also the ones that crack us open and push us forward. Support comes in many forms. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing to this channel. Your presence here makes it possible for more stories like this to be told and heard. It's not just about me. It's about all of us who've ever been told to wait our turn, or to tone it down, or to not make waves. We deserve better. We are better. And if you take anything from this, let it be this. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need approval to create something meaningful. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is quietly, deliberately walk away from a place that never saw your worth, and start building one that does. This story may have started with silence, but it ends with clarity. You don't need permission to take up space. You already belong.